Senator Roach is a strong supporter of protecting freedom, and as a member of the Joint Select Committee on Military and Veterans Affairs, has had the opportunity to combine her love of freedom with helping Washington State's veterans community. Senator Roach's husband is a Vietnam-era U.S. Army veteran, and she has a son currently serving in the U.S. Air Force who is stationed in Germany. She and her husband are the parents of 5 children, and they have 16 grandchildren. Senator Roach is a friend of the Vietnamese community and is a great supporter of freedom.
Well, thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here, and I want to thank the organizing committee and Colonel Phan and all of you that have come today. And really, it's an incredible memorial to what had happened on April 30th. It's almost overwhelming to understand the effects of and the desires of the heart and what a person will do for freedom and how important that is. And what we have in our hearts is this today, that someday Vietnam will be free. We want freedom now for Vietnam. It's been so well stated earlier, the oppressions of communism are something that need to be eradicated from the face of the earth. That what is happening there continues to be bad for the people and bad for really humanity in general, as long as it's allowed to persist. So today we are here remembering, but we're also wanting freedom for Vietnam, and we want it now. The Vietnamese heritage and the freedom flag, the yellow with the 3 red stripes. If it were me, I'd be recognizing this flag. This would be the flag that we would fly in schools when we talk about Vietnam, because that's how we remember Vietnam. If it were me, we would have the flag being remembered and spoken of more often in Washington State. I asked the governor for a letter to be read, and she complied, and so right now I want to read a letter from the governor of the state of Washington. She delivered this yesterday. Get a little light on it. Greetings from the governor. I'm delighted to join with all of those gathered here today in recognizing the many wonderful contributions of the Vietnamese Americans, both in Washington State and throughout the United States. Diversity is one of the nation's greatest strengths, and the richness of our state's heritage is derived from a plurality of cultures, experiences, joined together by a common desire for opportunity and prosperity. I count it a privilege to have vibrant ethnic communities contributing to the social, artistic, and economic vitality of Washington, and I'm thankful for the part each of you plays in establishing a rich cultural heritage in our state. And the governor then closes by saying, thank you for coming. Please accept my best wishes for a meaningful event. I appreciate the fact very much that she sent us a letter, but what I want to hear is about freedom. I want to hear about the sacrifices that are made for freedom, because throughout history, people who value freedom are ready to step forward with their lives, everything they have in terms of possessions, their families are lost, and we need to remember this. And I'm so grateful that San Pham and the organizing committee want to make sure that the young people remember the past, because it's that past that gives us strength and an understanding of what the future can be and what the hope can be for Vietnam and for other areas across the world that have a communist ruler. And there aren't very many left, about 5 countries, that's all. So I had other remarks, but I want to make sure we have good time for a good friend of mine that's here tonight, and I'd like to let Sam Pham introduce him to you. Again, my wishes for freedom in Vietnam, and I know that someday we will see to have that happen. Thank you for allowing me and giving me the honor of being here this evening.
Thank you, Senator Pembroke. May I add something? I know Senator Pembroke for 20 years, right? 20 years, right? We were very close, and she's really a friend of our community. And we appreciate very much for her support and try to support her from now and the future. Okay, please, ladies and gentlemen, have welcome and have a hand to Senator Phan. Thank you, Senator. Thưa quý vị, tiếp theo chúng tôi xin trân trọng giới thiệu đến quý vị một anh hùng của cuộc chiến Việt Nam, ông Frosty Huse. Ông phục vụ tại tháng thứ 39 là ông đã có 4 lần bị thương, 4 lần phục vụ học, và chính vì sự bị thương như vậy mà ông phải rời Việt Nam. Chúng tôi trân trọng giới thiệu ông và xin để MC giới thiệu bằng tiếng Mỹ.
Gary Frosty Hulse served in the United States Marine Corps from 1964 until 1970. During his service, he spent 32 days in the Dominican Republic in May 1965 and then a total of 39 months in Vietnam. He earned 3 Purple Heart medals for wounds received in combat in Vietnam. After he retired from the Marine Corps for medical reasons in 1970, he attended college at Texas A&M, where he earned a degree in civil engineering. He has worked on the Hanford project and then went into business as a general contractor and custom home builder and retired in 1994. Since that time, he has been involved in several veterans organizations as a veteran advocate. He has served as a state commander for Military Order of the Purple Heart, as well as post, district, and state commander of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. He has been an active service officer assisting veterans for all eras with their claims of disability and other entitlement available from the VA and state and national agency. He is married to his wife Lois and has 2 daughters and 2 stepdaughters and 6 grandchildren.
Cảm ơn quý vị.
Tôi đã hân hạnh đến đây với các vị. Good evening and welcome. I'm honored to be here with you tonight. I joined the Marine Corps at 17 years old because I heard the sound of distant war drums, and I heard of an oppressed people that were struggling for their lives. In 1965, I went to Vietnam, September, and I was outside of Da Nang and in the Elephant Valley area until January of 1966. We then moved up to the Ao Shau Valley and went on civil combat operations in that Ao Shau. I saw the suffering of the refugees as they were migrating south to escape the oppression of communism and the tyranny of that form of government. In July 1966, up near the rock pile by the DMZ, I was wounded and medevaced out to the USS Repose for a stay. After a month and a half of recovery, I was sent back to duty, but my unit had suffered 60% casualties in the battalion. They had gone back to Okinawa to regroup and reorganize, so I was reassigned to MAC-V. I went to the city of Hue, where I had the great pleasure of working with the Hukbao Regiment, the Black Tigers. I worked with them several months and was reassigned up to Quang Tri, where I worked with the 2nd Arvin Division. At that time, Lam Son Hai was still continuing, as was the Marine Corps counterpart for the Prairie operations. I saw many Vietnamese wounded and killed. As Shakespeare once wrote, "He that sheds blood with me today in battle, he is my brother." I consider the Vietnamese as my brothers and as my sisters. I saw the horrors in the city of Hue right after the Tet Offensive, where thousands of Vietnamese people have been gathered up by the communists and executed and thrown in a mass grave. I share with you your pain. Freedom is something that is burned into the heart of every human being, and freedom is worth fighting and dying for. If I had to do it all over again, I would do the same thing. I returned to the States in November of 1969. I once again returned to Vietnam, this time in the An Hoa area. We had several operations there. I was, again, with 1st Battalion, 7th Marines this time. And I worked as a platoon sergeant. In about May, the battalion commander asked me to be his intelligence and civil affairs chief. So I had the opportunity once again to work with Vietnamese people directly, helping them obtain a rice thrashing machine so that they could effectively and economically thrash the rice. And taking corpsmen out to treat their sick and the suffering people. I was wounded in August and returned home in September of 1970, and then I was retired shortly after that for the wounds I'd received. 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to return to Vietnam for 2 weeks. I didn't recognize many of the places that I had seen before, and much has been done. The farms were turned back to the farmers because the communists nearly starved the people of Vietnam to death in the late 80s and 90s. There are many businesses that are thriving in Vietnam, and the people are moving forward, but there's still much left to be done. Communist tyranny and oppression does not disappear overnight. It continues to deprive the people of Vietnam of their basic human liberties. And as I spoke of the Vietnamese, there was an underlying note of fear. Even though 80% of the people in Vietnam today were born after the Vietnamese War, 80%. They feel like they have a good life, but there's an undercurrent of fear that if they say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, that the army will come in and take them away. I talked to former Vietnamese soldiers that had endured the re-education camps, which in itself had a 75% mortality rate. They were subjected to slave labor. Most of the re-education camps now are gone, but there's still the oppression and tyranny of communists in the government. It is my hope that the Vietnamese people will continue to move towards freedom. And in my heart, I know that freedom will prevail. But the future is too far away. Vietnam and the Vietnamese people need freedom now. Thank you very much.